I'm going to sneak one last video in tonight. It should be a little quickie one, and it also has to do with stencils in order to beautify or make paper have more texture, more interest to use in either journaling or in collaging. And we're building up to doing a collage together. So I'm going to show you two basic things, and many of you already know how to do this. Some of you have asked me to show you how. So once again, I have a small piece of paper, and this time I'm just using scrapbook paper that I've had in my drawer for years, and I am going to tape it down. And we are going to emboss a pattern on here. There's two kinds of embossing, really. There's the, maybe more than two actually. There's the kind where you make indentations in the paper, and if anyone's interested in learning how to do that, I could do a demo on that as well. And then there's the kind where you put your pattern on top using embossing powder or embossing paste, that type of thing. So I am going to start by using embossing powder. I have this embossing powder in gold, and I have Versamark, which basically is a rubber stamp with that's sort of gluey and it's clear. And so I am I didn't put my tape on very well, didn't hold it, so I hope this doesn't mess up my pattern, but we'll see. So I am just putting this on here, and you can't see anything because I'm just putting the glue okay, and now I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to pour the embossing powder on. But before I pour the oh, I'm sorry, you can't see what I'm doing. Let's try this. Okay, so here's my pattern, my stencil I put over my paper. I'm taking off the tape, moving the stencil out of the way, and I'm just going to put a piece of typing paper underneath this because I'm going to liberally sprinkle embossing powder all over it. And as you can see, as I shake this, it's already taking the form of the stencil. So look what I have here. I've got all this gold powder. Before I go any further, I'm going to take my paper, make a little sort of funnel out of it, and pour all the leftover powder back in there. Okay, and in order to emboss this now, you need an embossing gun. Um, I don't know if a hair dryer would do it or not. I've always used an embossing gun. And you hold it about this far over the paper, and as you watch it, as you heat it, you will see it turns from this fluffy kind of powder, almost like you have glitter on the top of your page, and it melts it into the page, and it starts looking sort of wet. Okay, give me a minute and I will go over this whole thing. I don't know if you can see how it's changing. Now you do have to be careful with this depending on the kind of paper you're using. If you're using a paper that has any kind of synthetic content like UFO or something like this, you will actually melt the paper when you do this, which is not a great thing to do. Almost done. Just a couple more in the middle to melt that I missed. Okay, I'm not going to touch this now because it's going to be a little bit warm, at least not on the top. And I don't know if you can see this really nice gold metallic pattern that has burned onto this dotted paper. And now it's cool enough. You can actually feel it's raised. It has a little bit of texture, and I can rip this up to use this in a collage as part of whatever I'm doing. Okay, and we'll talk more about ripping later. Okay, I wanted to show you, the embossing powder comes in lots of different colors. Now I wanted to show you a different kind of embossing. And I have this really cool stencil of ammonites, fossils, and I'm putting them on top of this brown paper. I'm going to try and use this same tape again. And instead of using embossing powder, I'm going to try and use embossing paste. And it's glossy, it'll dry glossy. And this is kind of interesting. You can see the inside of it, it's sort of wet and gooey. And what you do, you use a knife or something like that, and you just cover these areas, and you can scrape off the extra if you want, move it to the next one, and you're just trying to make sure that you've got the black in all these areas. Now this takes a little bit longer to dry. It's kind of cool because it does stand a little bit higher than some of the embossing does when it's dry. And this too, it doesn't come in a lot of colors. White, black, gold, silver, bronze. And you can also use different things like absorbent grounds if you're used to Liquid-X or golden products. There's lots of things you can use with this. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and take the stencil off so that you can see what this looks like. But remember I told you that this will need to dry. So I'm taking it off. It will still be wet, but you will be able to see what's underneath. Okay, the great revealing. I hope it turned out right. Ooh, look at that. I don't know if you can see that very well. It's raised, it's shiny. It is going to dry up really cool. And these, actually, the ammonites look a little bit like flowers. You could pull them, tear them out separately and use them as flowers, or tear them up in some other way. I'm actually taking my stencil and turning it upside down on the paper, and hopefully I can lift some of that black off and get a second use out of it. Well, okay, that's kind of different. Didn't know how that would, it's sort of a negative of the one before, but I can see myself possibly doing something with that. So you've seen two different ways to do embossing today, with the powder and with the paste. And let's see, what are we going to do the next time we get together? Well, it'll be a surprise. Thanks for listening. I hope you're having fun in your house during this time. Bye-bye.